Hi, it's Emily back for week 8 to talk to you more about music and singing. Last week we talked about sharps and flats, and we talked about what it means to sing in tune. This week we're going to talk about what it means for music to be in a certain key. So we'll be using our sharps and flats again. We're also going to talk about how which key a piece of music is in might make you feel certain ways when you listen to it. This week, while we talk about keys, we're going to be using some things that you've already learned. We're going to talk about scales, I'll mention chords, and we'll also talk about sharps and flats. Now that might sound like a lot of information, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to remember it all. Think of this as an introduction, so that if you choose to study music later in your life, some of these things will sound familiar to you. So let's get started talking about what it means for music to be in a key. Let's start by reviewing two things that might be useful to you for this week. Remember when we talked about a scale? I said that a scale was a group of notes that either all go up or all go down. Remember we also talked about chords. I said that chords could either be notes all played at the same time or broken up, like this, or like this. And a scale would sound like this. So remember those two things for today. A scale is a group of notes, either all going up or all going down. And chords are notes that are played at the same time or maybe broken up. So finally, now that we've reviewed a little bit, what is a key? A key is simply the scale that we're going to use for a piece of music. Once we know which scale we're using, we also know which notes would be in the chords that we use that lead our ear through the piece. So again, the key that a piece of music is in is telling us which group of notes or scale we're going to use in that piece, which then also tells us which chords we'll be using. That might already feel like a lot of information. Scales, chords, keys, it can feel like a lot. So let's just slow it down a little bit and look at some music and talk about where we might find that information. It's okay if you don't know what to do with that information yet. You have years to study music and learn about that. Right now, we're just getting used to looking at a piece of music and knowing what kind of information we can find on it. So let's look at a piece of music and see where we might find the information that tells us what key or what group of notes or scale that piece of music is going to be using. Last week, we talked about sharps and flats. Sharps and flats. This week, we're going to look for those sharps and flats on a piece of music to tell us what key a piece of music is in. Don't worry, we're not going to try to learn all the keys. We're just going to look at the music to figure out where we would find that information once we needed it. So let's take a look at this piece of music. This is just a scale, remember? Just a group of notes. This scale starts on C and goes to the next C. Look here near the treble clef on the staff. Do you see any sharps or flats? No, there are none. That would mean when I go to play this scale on the piano, I don't need any sharps or flats. And that would be a C major scale, or in the key of C major. Let's look at one that looks different. Here's another scale or a piece of music. We have our 5 lines of the staff, we have our treble clef, but look, now we have a little flat sign. This scale starts on F. What this is telling us is that if we want to play from F to F, or play a scale from F to F, that group of notes, somewhere in there we would need a flat. Now, don't worry, because we haven't talked too much about how to find the notes on the staff, but just know that the line or space that the flat or sharp is on or in tells you which note is going to get the sharp or flat. I know that sounded like a lot of information. So right now, let's just remember that to find information about what key a piece of music is in, we want to look at the beginning of the piece of music, and we want to look for sharps or flats. The key of C had no sharps or flats. The key of F had one flat. And that's where you look on music to find out what key that music is in. Today, I'm just going to introduce you to one key. I'm going to pick a pretty easy one, a good key to start with, the key of C major. Another important thing to remember about keys is that the name of the key tells you where your home base is. So in the key of C major, the note C is going to feel like home base. By the end of the piece, we want to get back to that note. Our ear wants to hear that note. So again, we're going to talk about the key of C major. The name of the key, C major, tells us that the note C is going to feel like home base. Let's keep it simple for today and just talk about one key, the easiest key, at least on the piano. This is the key of C major. Let me show you a picture you've already looked at today. Here is a scale in the key of C major. Remember, we look on the staff near the treble clef to see if we can find any sharps or flats when we're looking at a piece of music. This music has none because it's in the key of C major. When we play C major, we don't need any sharps or flats, and that's why it's one of the easier keys. Remember, I also said the name of the key tells your ear which note is going to feel like home base. So in the key of C major, the note C is going to feel like home base to your ear. Let me play you a few examples so you see what I mean. Let me play you some chords from the key of C major. Remember, chords are just notes that I play stacked, notes happening at the same time. And to be in the key of C major, all it means is that my chords won't have any sharps and won't have any flats, because the key of C major doesn't have any sharps or flats. Listen to these chords from the key of C major. I'll play them one more time. The chords I played for you led your ear back to our home base in C major. What would happen if I didn't play the last chord? Listen this time. I'll play the same chords, but I'll leave off the last chord. Does it feel unfinished to you? Let me play the same thing again. See if you can tell where your ear wants to go. And now, let me play you the original chords with the last chord. You can hear how these chords lead your ear back to our home base. One more time. Those were chords, notes played at the same time, from the key of C major, no sharps, no flats, that led your ear back to our home base in C major. So to sum up, when we talk about what key a piece of music is in, like C major, we're talking about which note feels like home base. In the key of C major, C would be our home base. We're also talking about how many sharps or flats we need to use in that key. we look at the beginning of a piece of music to find that information. In the key of C, there are no sharps and flats. Other keys will have sharps and flats that appear on the staff next to the treble clef, and that will tell you what key that piece of music is in. Now let's talk about how certain keys might make us feel certain ways. Maybe you'll find it interesting that for hundreds of years, women and men who write music have thought of certain keys as having certain feelings attached to them, or maybe even certain colors. Some composers, or women or men who write music, have said that the key of C major feels very natural or pure or innocent. Some have said that it reminds them of the color red. Others have said it reminds them of the color white. Listen again to those chords from C major. Do you think that they make you feel any certain emotion, or do you think of a color when you hear them? Listen. Now, let me play some chords from a different key to see if you can hear how that key might feel very different. Now I'm going to play the key of C minor. C minor has some flats in it. Listen to the chords from C minor and see if you can hear how they might sound sadder, or maybe you think of a different color or a darker color when you hear C minor. C major and C minor sound and feel very different. Now, let's think about some of your favorite music and how you might feel or think of certain things because of the key that it's written in. The next time you listen to some of your favorite music, I want you to think about how that music makes you feel, how the sounds of that music make you feel, and even ask yourself if it reminds you of any color. If you had to pick a color, what color would you say that song was? And even if you don't know what key it's in, you can think about the fact that maybe the man or woman who wrote it was feeling some of the same things you are, and that's why they chose that key. I hope you had a good time today learning a little bit about keys, how the name of a key tells us which note makes our ear feel at home, and how composers might choose certain keys because it makes them feel certain ways or even reminds them of certain colors. There are so many ways to think about music, and I hope these lessons will encourage you to think about some of your favorite music in new ways. Next week, we're going to talk about a really important topic, and it's not just for performers like me, it's for everybody. And that topic is stage fright. How do we get the confidence to get up in front of people and sing or play an instrument or even give a speech in class? For some people, it might seem really easy, and it might seem really difficult for other people. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how I think about it and some ideas I have that might make you feel more confident getting up in front of people to talk, sing, or play. See you next week. Bye.